Hello, lovelies. Got my drink. Got my book of Russian folk tales. So, let's read you one more. There once lived an old man with his second wife. Always better than the first. And they each had a daughter. The wife pampered her own daughter, who was lazy and bad-tempered, but she was unkind to her stepdaughter. The old man's daughter had to rise before daybreak to tend to the cattle, to fetch the firewood, to light the stove and sweep the door, yet her stepmother found fault with everything that she did, and grumbled at her the whole day through. Even the wildest wind grows calm with time, but there was no quieting the old woman once she was roused. She would not be content until she had driven the poor girl from the house. "Get rid of her, old man," she said one day to her husband. "I cannot bear the sight of her any longer. Drive her into the forest and leave her in the snow." The old man pleaded, but the wife always had her way. Russian Karen, I suppose. So one bitterly cold morning, he harnessed his horses to the sledge and called his daughter. "Come, my child, we're going for a ride. Climb into the sledge." The sledge raced over the crisp snow into the forest until it came to a lofty fir tree. There the old man stopped and left the luckless girl, trembling by a deep snowdrift. He drove home with heavy heart, certain he would never see his daughter again. It was very cold, and the girl sat beneath the hoary fir tree shivering. All of a sudden she caught her breath, for she could hear a crackling and snapping of twigs, and she knew Grandfather Frost was leaping through the trees. In a twinkling he was in the topmost branches of the very tree by which she sat. "Are you warm, my pretty one?" he called. "Yes, quite warm, thank you, Grandfather Frost," she answered. He came down lower, and the crackling and snapping grew louder than ever. "Are you warm?" he called again. "Are you snug, my pretty one?" The girl was scarcely able to catch her breath, but she said, "Yes, I'm quite warm, thank you, Grandfather Frost." He then climbed lower still, cracking and snapping the frosty boughs very loudly indeed. "Are you warm?" he asked. "Are you snug, my pretty one? Are you cozy, my sweet snow child?" The girl was growing numb and could hardly move her tongue, but still she managed to whisper, "I'm quite warm, thank you, Grandfather Frost." Then Grandfather Frost took pity on the girl and wrapped her in his fluffy furs and fleecy eiderdowns. Meanwhile, the wicked stepmother was frying pancakes and preparing for the funeral repast. She said to her husband, "Go to the forest, old fool, and bring your daughter back to be buried." The old man harnessed the horses and obediently went into the forest, and there found his daughter on the very spot he had left her. She was alive and well, wrapped in a warm sable coat over a glittering velvet gown. Beside her stood a large chest stuffed with furs and rare gems. The old man was overjoyed. He seated his daughter in the sledge, put the chest in beside her, and drove home. Back in the house, the old woman was still frying pancakes when suddenly her little dog began to bark. "Ruff, ruff! The old man's daughter comes rich and fair. A wondrous fortune found she there." The old woman threw the dog a pancake and said, "You're wrong, dog. You should say, 'The old man's daughter is cold and dead. The forest snow lies on her head.'" The dog munched the pancake, but still barked, "Ruff, ruff! The old man's daughter comes rich and fair. A wondrous fortune found she there." The old woman hurled more pancakes at the dog, and when this did not stop it, she beat it until it ran howling and yapping into the snow. Suddenly, there came the sound of the sledge racing into the yard. The door burst open, and in walked the old man's daughter, dazzling in her white furs and precious stones. Behind her walked her happy father, bearing the heavy chest of furs and jewels. The old woman was astonished to see her alive and dressed in such finery. "Harness the horses, old man," she said to her husband. "Take my own daughter to the forest and leave her at the same spot." The old man put the woman's daughter into the sledge, drove her into the forest, and left her by the deep snowdrift under the lofty fir tree. She was soon so cold that her teeth chattered and her feet grew numb. Presently, Grandfather Frost came leaping through the treetops, cracking and snapping the twigs, and stopping to ask the old woman's daughter, "Are you warm, my pretty one?" "Oh no, I'm terribly cold," she snapped. "Don't pinch and pierce me so." Grandfather Frost came lower, making the branches snap and crackle more loudly. "Are you warm?" he asked. "Are you snug, my pretty one?" "Oh no, I'm freezing," she snapped back. "Go away, you stupid old man." But Grandfather Frost came down still lower, and the branches cracked and snapped louder than ever, and his breath grew colder and colder. "Are you warm?" he called again. "Are you snug, my pretty one? Are you cozy, my sweet one?" "Oh no," she cried. "I'm frozen stiff. Go away, you stupid greybeard." Grandfather Frost was so cross that he sent a piercing cold blast through her and turned the old woman's daughter into a block of ice. Day had barely dawned when the old woman said to her husband, "Make haste and harness the horses, old man. Go and fetch my daughter and bring her back clad in furs and jewels." When the old man had gone, the little dog began to bark. "Woof woof! The old man's daughter will soon be wed, but the old woman's daughter is cold and dead." The old woman threw the dog a pie and said, "You're wrong, dog. You should say, 'The old woman's daughter comes rich and fair, a wondrous fortune found she there.'" The dog continued its barking. "Ruff, ruff! The old woman's daughter is cold and dead." Before long she heard the sound of horses' hooves and rushed out to greet her daughter, but when the old woman turned back the cover on the sledge, she found her daughter frozen stiff. So overcome with grief was she that in that moment she died. The old man and his daughter lived on together happily for many years, well rid of the cruel old woman and her lazy daughter. For if the second wife is better, the third wife is sweeter still.
I can make it happen. I can get you anything you want. You just have to talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me. I'm your priest. I'm your shrink. I'm your main connection to the switchboard of souls. I'm the magic man. The Santa Claus of the subconscious. You say it. You even think it. You can have it.